And I think network. I feel like finding jobs now is more about the people behind the role, because most resumes are just being lost in the bots, not even able to be found. So it is connecting with people, reaching out, going to those events, being on Discord, and being a part of these communities that way.
The best jobs are filled before they're posted, and they get posted because somebody at HR says you have to post it.
Absolutely.
For example, I have now 3 jobs that can't be filled. Well, we have interviewed almost 50 people now, and the level of the knowledge is too low. The offers that we made were rejected. So the problem is that the CVs don't get to the hiring manager. I'm sure there are people there. This is what I had a meeting with HR on exactly this subject. The knowledge is there. I'm sure the people are there, but the CVs don't make it to us. So to me, that's the biggest problem I see. And that's a problem in the technical field. So the jobs in case are for the ops, the operational side. But also if I would want to hire in the team that I lead right now, I would find it difficult because it's just hard to receive a good CV from a person that actually wants the job. So refine the CV to make it pass through the damn scanners.
Yeah, there are a lot of people want the job. Hardly anyone wants to do the job. That is the dilemma.
We have another interesting question here. What are the panel's thought of effectively enforcing cybersecurity standards across public, private sectors, especially with evolving AI threats?
Okay, this is a can of worms. So when you look at the standards that we have now, they are specifically made to be vague so that they can fit really anything from a startup to a huge mammoth. So when you want to actually enforce them, then you have to have a million talks with the network team that says, okay, where is that written down that I'm not allowed to do? And you can't show it black and white. Then you go to the developers and have the same talk. So actually enforcing the standard is a very different story of negotiation, mostly. In the European Union, we also have NIS2, and we needed to wait for clarifications 3 times because the law was made by lawyers and it has to be applied by engineers. So there's a huge fracture between the 2 sides. Again, you can look at the law and say you are compliant, but are you really secure? So to me, it's mostly a difference of, are you pen testing enough? Are you red teaming enough? Are you actually trying to be secure, or are you just trying to check some boxes?
Yeah, I always heard compliance and security aren't the same thing, and they totally go for different things. And back to AI, I would do policies, user training, and technical controls. Sorry, Karl, go ahead.
No, I agree with both of you strongly. I would also say, I've seen an improvement in security standard, in enforcement and transparency by kind of to kind of dive into software issues specifically, like modern configuration as code, infrastructure as code systems. A lot of the issues that I've seen from deploying code into the public sector, but I suspect it's the same in the private sector, stem from human mistakes or human customizations during deployment processes, or human created or handmade custom configurations during these processes. And those aren't auditable. You can't go back and see what happened, where the mistakes are. They're often not really recorded anywhere well. But some of those modern kind of infrastructure as code, configuration as code, looking at like stuff that deploys across Kubernetes automatically. That's all documented. It's maybe part of a GitOps flow or something like that, so you can go back and check it all out. And in the government, like, we're typically the last to adopt things. So maybe the private sector's been doing it amazing for all these years, but I think on this one we're not too far behind them, and so at least some of that stuff looks bright to me in the future. But maybe I'm naive.
I'm finding myself parsing this question and notice and stuck on across public, private. Public and private are really different. If you're not in doing public sector, ignore it. If you're not in private sector, ignore it. Like the threat actors are different. The tech tends to be different. The cultures are really different. I think Karl and John could probably have more to say about this. I stopped doing government 12 years ago because I just couldn't take the culture and the pace. It's not to cast, I don't want to cast aspersions on the people who work in that space. You have my respect. I also know that like you really have to specialize it because it's a different beast. And I think the people who would look outward, because if it's an in-out thing, it would say like, yeah, I don't do private sector. You're crazy out there. The other thing that's interesting is the idea of evolving IT threats. I don't think the IT threats are evolving that much. I don't think that security itself varies much over time. IT does, business does, society does. Economic incentives on the part of attackers change. Economic incentives and disincentives to do security on the part of the buyers change. But if we're talking about effective enforcement, it starts with one, policy. What is policy? Policy is a statement of management intent. That's what I learned in my ISACA training, and I think it's true. Policy must be aligned with guidelines and standards. How do you enforce them? You check them, and then you have incentives and disincentives for following those standards, because we don't really enforce, we persuade. So you have to sell. You have to be able to sell, make people want to abide by these standards. Nice thing about standards is they remove a lot of the decision making. So for me, that's the best part. Like you can either make it up as you go along, or you can follow the standard and the decisions are made for you.
We have another question from the audience, and that is, what do you think are the biggest cybersecurity challenges organizations will face in the next 5 to 10 years?
Money. Everything costs a lot. So it really depends on how secure do you need to be. So if you're in finance, that level increases a lot. But the budgets I'm seeing are bubbling up from year to year. So if when I started, maybe 2 or 3 million were enough for a bank of, I don't know, 7,000 employees. Now we have a budget of 15 million, and we're looking at it, it might not be enough for this year. So the money is just getting crazy when it comes to protection.
I don't know if I could give you 5 to 10 minutes, the way things are changing in the world. 5 to 10 years, forget about it. You got 2. That's your planning horizon. That's all you got. The one thing I will say is that if the trends continue, insider threat is going to be far and away the most important issue, because we're seeing fewer and fewer people with more and more power, compensated better and better. Look at the frontier labs and the crazy money that they're laying out, right? And companies like NVIDIA. And then you have a lot of people who are being left out in the cold, to some degree, due to their unwillingness to actually accept the coming reality and the present reality. But you're going to find a lot of people who have skills and can't put bread on the table, and some of them still have access. So insider threat becomes really important. The external attackers, it's just a matter of volume. It really is. That's all it is.
Yeah, and AI will certainly increase that volume. Looking at like adversarial attacks, and I think one of you mentioned vibe coding and just the slop that is coming out from, I play with it too, and I'm like, this isn't good. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm having fun playing with this. But then also just IoT and what's happening even with like wearable devices and all of the data that we have on our person and our phones, and just securing that data, and everything is harder, with AI, and easier to a certain extent too.
I think we've only begun to see the rise of this kind of scamming and personalized phishing that's enabled by AI. And so when I think of like AI increases in attacks, like I'm sure that on the very technical side, we will see some changes and some increase there, and some increase in volume and all that stuff. But I also think we're seeing those the video feeds of a person that looks and sounds exactly like the person that you expect to be on the phone with. The other day I saw a TikTok. I was on YouTube, I promise, but I saw a little TikTok about somebody that was her husband was called up. A person on the other end of the phone explained that they had her captured. And what I thought was, if that scammer was not able to use her likeness, her individual likeness in this scam call, then they will be able to in the next scam call, because she's put out a video on YouTube and TikTok. And the more of these kind of, I'm speaking here today. If anyone were to record me, you could replay my likeness and target an organization that I'm a part of, or my loved ones with false information. So I think we've only begun to see the start of that. I think it can only increase, and then we'll have this challenge of authentication and things in new ways that we haven't had to think of before. And I think that it's really attacking the human in that case instead of attacking the cyber system. So I think you get a little bit of insider threat there. You get a little bit of people targeting your insiders as well.
I think applying best practices. Thanks. Applying best practices, all this new technology. Just what Karl's saying about the deepfakes. I've talked to my family, and we have a code word. If you ever get a deepfake from me, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm in jail, send something to me, I'm going to say some silly word that no one else knows because we talked about it in a park. And it just, but what the Karl said, like, apply best practices to current AI. Like, I'll end with this part. I was talking to some senior pen testers. They said that they used to file all these paperwork, rules of engagement. You talk to lawyers for a week even before getting started, but the same organization had no problem letting an AI tool run through it with admin root rights. That's crazy to me. So best practices. Thanks.